Talking about NPS scores, it reflects, and I had a look at your scores, by the way. And when we did your last relationship survey, we were also doing benchmarking for health insurance. The benchmarking we did was for the largest brands. And you were so miles ahead of the best out of the big brands, it was not even funny. And I have seen your transactional survey results and the healthcare one, and it's sitting at like 94.5. Scores like this don't happen automatically.
I think certainly one of the places we started was with the NPS surveys, because it started to give us instant feedback on how people were thinking about how we service them. So that was a fantastic foundation for us to start the journey.
Yeah.
So we moved from a transactional mindset to a relationship mindset.
Wow.
We don't just look at the detractors, we look at every comment.
Right.
Because there's some gold in the 9s and the 10s.
You won some interesting awards, and the interesting thing about them is the fact that they are what I would call voice of the member awards.
Well, probably the main ones were the Roy Morgan Customer Service Satisfaction Awards, and I'm incredibly proud of that because it wasn't something that you paid to be part of.
Correct.
But there's a national survey that gets done every second year of the whole health industry. We have rated consistently in the top 3 funds, but the biggest one for me that we are regularly at the top of the tree for is trust. We don't have a KPI on asking our staff to get off the phone quickly. You're there to help the member as long as it takes.
Build a relationship.
And you're building a relationship.
That customer journey is so important. Where's the weakest link in this chain?
Correct.
This customer journey chain.
Yeah.
And you've got to address that link.
Staff can't give customers what they don't already have. So they don't feel valued and cared for and all those things. They can't transfer it across, and you can't fake emotion. You know, even on the phone you can tell fake emotion.
Well, look, I'm a big believer in happy staff, happy members.
Yeah.
Any kind of feedback we get from our staff, I rate that as important. My view is that our leaders, the leaders on the front line or the teams they're leading, is they absolutely have to lead by example.
Customer-centric CEOs and employee-centric CEOs are rare. What would you say to someone, let's just say a CEO comes in, what advice would you give them?
My principal advice would be to be authentic, because people can tell what you're not. And so if you're not living to your true self, you cannot be a good leader.
I will never forget that the frontline people are the ones that make me look good. My role is to create an environment to get the best out of them. I just can't believe that leaders forget that it's because of them that the organisation's so good. So you need to talk to them all the time.
Welcome to another episode of Strategy Edge, where we talk to business leaders that have achieved amazing results in terms of brand strategy, customer experience, and NPS, and employee engagement. And suffice to say, if they achieve all this, they're also great leaders. So we're going to talk about all those aspects today. Today, I'm really excited to introduce 2 people who I've known now for more than 10 years. Cathy McGuane, who is the Executive Manager Member Experience, and she's also the chair of Stadiums Queensland. So everyone who's into sport, Cathy is a good friend to make. And Rob Seljak, who is the CEO of TUH. TUH is a brand that's very close to my heart. I remember 10 years ago, we did the customer strategy workshop with a team. I think there were around 15 odd people in the room. And, that's where we kind of laid the foundation of the customer strategy and the insight strategy. And it's so great that, you guys have gone from leaps and bounds and you won lots of awards, and I'll get you to talk about those kind of awards. Suffice to say, you can't win awards. without doing something great. And that's what we're going to talk about. Rob, to actually begin with, because a lot of our audience is from overseas, can you tell us a little bit about TUH, what it is, the market it operates in, the challenges, and so on and so forth?
Thanks, Chris. TUH, Teachers Union Health, is a private health insurance company based here in Brisbane, primarily focused on the education and nursing sectors, but we also cover other unions. So it's a market that has 34 companies in Australia.
Yeah.
And TUH is about in the middle of the market in terms of size. But some of the big funds are very, very much bigger.
Yeah.
Like your Medibank and Bupa, those kind of very large funds. So those are our main competitors, those big funds. And there's a lot of competition from those funds, obviously. They have a lot of money to invest in marketing, in IT, and also vertical integration. So some of them are starting to buy hospitals, dental surgeries, to deliver a broader service to their membership. So we have to position ourselves in that market. So the competitive pressures are from those big funds. And then there's problems or issues with the market itself, the private health market. So for example, during COVID, a lot of hospital procedures were suspended.
Right.
So our members couldn't use their insurance because one of the big uses of private health insurance is to get your knee fixed or your shoulder done or whatever. And those services were suspended. So people were questioning the value they got from their health insurance. At the same time, there's pressures across the health sector, both public and private, mainly revolving around workforce. Doctor shortages, nursing shortages, increasing costs, driving the whole price, and technology, all driving the price of healthcare very much higher.
Right. So a lot of our overseas audience might not fully understand this, but you are a member-based, not-for-profit organization. How does this manifest itself in terms of how you treat your members and your strategies, your policies, given that your main competitors are privately owned funds whose primary driver is shareholder value?
Well, that is a strength of ours, and it's something, of course, we use to our advantage. So the two biggest competitors, as you mentioned, they're for-profit funds. One of them is owned by an overseas company. So some of those funds obviously have different masters to serve, including their members. We only exist for our members.
Right.
We cannot take any of the profits. They can only go back to the member.
Right.
So we use that as a way of developing strategies to give back to our members and also to engaging with our people so they share that mindset.
Absolutely.
Everything is for the member.
Yeah. So give me an example of like a strategy or a policy that you developed that was, purely giving back to the member. That is, that your competitors may not do.
We have a couple of strategies. Some are more related to healthcare, and some are, lateral or on the side, which Cathy can explain in terms of our member service, member value. But in terms of what we do for our members, we were one of the first funds in Australia to actually provide a health service to our members. So we originally had a stress line. So this was particularly appropriate for teachers. We started this some decades ago, and we've built on that. So not only do we now provide a phone service, but we also employ a team of nurses that are able to assist our members coordinate their care. So it's a care coordination service through the very, very complex health system we have here in Australia. Both public and private, primary and secondary, doctors versus hospitals versus allied professionals. It can get very complicated.
Right.
So they provide such a good service.
Mm-hmm.
You'll never believe their NPS scores, Chris. This is not possible. But we get such amazing compliments
Yes.
from our members. And these are members that really
Yeah.
need assistance.
Right.
So we've had one recently where somebody with a terrible back pain and also a chronic disease. Sometimes these ailments go together. And this person was on a treadmill in the health system.
Yeah.
Could not get anything to improve their service.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to read a sentence from this member
Oh, absolutely.
who wrote to our care coordination team
Yeah.
and said, "I'm so pleased that you've been able to provide me with the much needed care coordination support and assistance will allow me to commence my treatment. As you know, my back pain journey hasn't been easy, and I'm very excited to finally find a pathway that holds so much promise.
Mm-hmm.
To be honest, at times I have felt hopeless and helpless, and I now feel as though I'm heading in the right direction with my illnesses." So these people are people that score our NPS out of the chart. So this service is over 90, okay, and consistently.
Yes, I saw it.
So that type of value add only comes from a company that is really focused on the member and really cares about the member.
Oh, absolutely. Look, and talking about NPS scores, it reflects it. And I had a look at your scores, by the way, both the relationship survey that you did years ago and a transactional survey. Just for the actual listeners, a relationship survey is something you do periodically. And the importance of that is you get an overall sense of how the brand is performing. And when we did your last relationship survey, we were also doing benchmarking for health insurance. And the methodology was the same. So it was a like-for-like comparison. The benchmarking we did was for the largest brands. But then we kind of asked the same questions for you guys anyway. And you were so miles ahead of, the best, out of the big brands. It was not even funny. And I have seen your transactional survey results and the healthcare one, and it's sitting at like 94.5. So some of your transactional NPS results are exceedingly high. So well done on that. And I suppose for you, Cathy, scores like this don't happen, automatically. So you have to develop customer strategies, implement them. And I always tell people it's not a sprint, it's a marathon, right? So take us through, your journey in terms of, how you got to this stage.
Yes, and I think certainly one of the places we started was with the NPS surveys.
Yes.
Because it started to give us instant feedback on how people were thinking about how we service them.
Correct.
So that was a fantastic foundation for us to start the journey.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I particularly was very keen on was the frontline staff, I think, get it because they're interacting with the customers all the time.
Yeah.
But we had to engage with every aspect of our business.
Yeah.
The finance team, the IT team, the people and culture team. So we did a member survey, a membership strategy that incorporated every area of our business and how they were going to contribute to the member.
Yeah.
So they had to sit down and talk about, even though you're doing invoicing or paying invoices, how did that link back to the member? What was your role? And then they wrote them down and they were accountable. So we would go back and check to see whether they'd done it. And I have to say, we did that strategy for about 3 or 4 years because after that, they'd got it.
Yes.
We moved from a transactional mindset to a relationship mindset.
Wow.
So those people who were sitting there processing claims weren't processing a piece of paper or on the app or whatever. There was a person at the end of that transaction that was waiting for that money.
Yes.
So we turned the mindset around to say, right, well, these people are entitled to this money.
Yeah.
Our goal is to get that money to them as quickly as possible.
Right.
So we pay this claim now. within 24 hours to 2 days. Wow. It's incredible. But people totally related it back to the member. Our contact centre, we got rid of most of the IVRs. We moved from asking people for their member number to their name.
Wow.
We had to personalise it. You're an individual.
Yeah.
You are talking to us at some of the most stressful times of your life if you're sick.
Yeah.
You have to be compassionate. You have to be empathetic. We don't have a KPI on asking our staff to get off the phone quickly. We don't have a KPI on that at all. You're there to help the member as long as it takes.
And build a relationship.
And you're building a relationship. So the NPS surveys, we don't just look at the detractors. We look at every comment.
Right.
Because there's some gold in the 9s and the 10s.
Yes.
You've got the improvement comments.
Yeah.
So they are looked at religiously every day by our leaders. We NPS many major transactions across the business, and we have been on a journey of continuous improvement of removing friction out of the customer journeys now for years, but it doesn't stop.
Yes. Yes.
This is a never-ending journey.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because everything's changing, and you have to keep contemporary. So it's been long and challenging at times, particularly when you're changing culture.
Yes.
But we're there, and we're just people get it. They just get it.
Yes.
They walk the talk.
Yes. We'll go to culture in a second, but you raised some interesting points. For someone to be a promoter, that means they give you a 9 or 10. Like I'm happy to recommend you. They are putting their own reputation at risk. Because imagine if I recommend something to Rob, go and see this movie, and the movie is hopeless. That means my reputation is in trouble, right? So it's like a big ask. For that to happen, everything has to be good. You can't have one thing good and one thing bad and one thing average. Everything has to be good. So they should get paid on time. When they ring someone up, it should be, a special experience. Everything has to be good. You can't have anything bad. Like, you don't get a promoter that says, the policies and all are really good, but, I don't like the call center, as an example. It doesn't happen.
No.
So that's cool.
I think the other important thing, Chris, is that that customer journey is so important.
Yes.
So just what you're saying about it's like where's the weakest link in this chain?
Correct.
This customer journey chain.
Yeah.
And you've got to address that link. Yeah. And we often found, as kind of Cathy suggested, it wasn't in the customer service staff.
Yes.
It was the systems they were working.
Or the process.
The rules they had to follow, the process. Yeah. And we're in a very highly regulated industry.
Yeah.
So we have laws that we have to follow and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
But we constantly ask ourselves, does it have to be this way?
Yes.
Like right now, somebody that's processing claim,
yeah.
if there's a question about the claim, even if it's at $10, the supervisor had to approve it. Well, we delegated to that person. If you feel that this person should get an extra up to $100, whatever the amount was, you approve it.
Yeah.
And that's a big culture shift because they were used to, that's not my job. Moving on to the next. Or somebody calling in about, I know you do claims, I want to change my address. Well, we can't do that. The membership team has to do that, hold and all. So we had to develop systems where they're talking to each other, the staff are multi-skilled, just to remove those friction points. But the key is to find those points, find those pain points, and then have all the discussion behind the scenes with risk, with legal, with your product people, all of marketing, all of that to bring it together into one seamless journey.
Absolutely. The flip side of that is, whenever you have a service interaction with someone and they say to you, I'm sorry, sir, madam, I can't do that for you. That's not our process. What the staff member is really saying to you as a customer is, process doesn't make sense. That's what they're really trying to say. So it's great that you're doing this. Now, you can't have engaged members without having engaged staff first. And what we have found in our studies with clients and benchmarking, et cetera, that the bridge is actually emotion, right? So you've got to make your members feel certain things like valued, cared for, supported, understood, empathetic. Now, staff can't give customers what they don't already have. So they don't feel valued and cared for and all those things. They can't transfer it across. And you can't fake emotion. Even on the phone you can tell fake emotion. So you've already touched on the cultural changes you've made to make your NPS go high. Anything else you've done that you need to add to what you've already shared with us?
Well, look, I'm a big believer in happy staff, happy members.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I've always taken the employee engagement surveys, any kind of feedback we get from our staff, I rate that as important as our member feedback.
Yeah.
So my view is that our leaders, the leaders on the front line or the teams they're leading, is they absolutely have to lead by example, which is led by me and then, of course, Rob from the top.
Yeah.
But if there is any issues sitting in the team, we need to resolve it because we need to ensure we create an environment where people want to come to work and they live the purpose of what TUH is about, and that's caring for our members, that they are the centre, but we care for our members, but we care for you too. Mm-hmm. And if that isn't resonating through, they're not going to perform for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And in order to do that, you've got to have your values right. So we really... strongly believe in a values-based culture.
Yes.
We want our people to be curious, courageous, and caring.
Yes.
So unless people are asking questions every day, how can I do this better?
Yeah, exactly.
Or why has this happened?
Yes.
Nothing is going to change because they're the ones that see it.
Yes.
And then they have to have the courage to raise it and follow through with it. And that ultimately results in better care for the members.
And just following that on, I think it's important about your recruiting then.
Yes. That's something that most people forget.
They forget. And we have worked hard to ensure we're asking the right questions, that people, the people we're getting in, get that care, get that empathy, get that compassion, particularly if they're on our front line and they're dealing with our members, because you are dealing with our members, but also across the board. If you're processing at the back, that's the kind of people that we need to bring into the organisation in the first place. Absolutely. So it's right from the beginning that you have to start ensuring that that's there.
Do you know, in this day and age, especially with the younger generation, they're looking for work more than our generation, I think, that is purposeful and meaningful, right? It's more and more the case. And I think with you guys, this purpose and meaning comes naturally. We actually do, we use a model in terms of employee engagement, which is based on understanding of strategy and direction on the one axis, and personal commitment to making it successful, right? And we found it to be one of the key drivers of employee engagement. And I'll explain how it works. So if someone fully understands their strategy and is personally committed to making it a success, we call them champions, right? And that's what you want. And these people give you way more discretionary effort. They go above and beyond. They're very loyal, they're very committed. They're constantly trying to find new ways to do things better and so on and so forth. So the ideal kind of scenario. Then you have some people who intellectually understand your strategy, but they're not personally committed to making it successful, right? And these are people we call bystanders. And honestly, they are people who will white-ant your strategies, right? And very dangerous group and needs to be managed, right? Then, of course, you have another group which don't understand your strategy and are not personally committed to making it successful. And the last group is very interesting. So this is a group of very positive, happy people who may not understand your strategy but are very personally committed to it, and we call them loose cannons affectionately. Now, at TUH, given the younger generation, I suppose, the personal commitment is one thing, but what do you do to consistently communicate to staff that this is the strategy, this is the direction, this is the purpose, So you constantly have that, because, with like HR and stuff, you would have heard that you have to be like a dripping tap, right? You can't stop. And if there's a saying that when it comes to staff engagement, you need to tell them at least 7 times before they go, yes, that's true. Because sometimes when you come up with a strategy or direction, people think, oh yeah, how long is this going to last? Is it going to last 3 months? And like I said, it's a marathon, not a sprint. So what do you do to consistently make sure it's there? They understand the strategy, they're personally committed to making it successful.
Look, we do that a number of ways. So I think it's just not one answer there. It's a complicated problem. But we do have a clear strategy set by the board with management, and then communicating it. We have quarterly all-staff forums.
Right.
But we've also tried to adapt those to different environments. So since COVID, more staff are doing the hybrid working, which appeals to both young and old, actually, for different reasons.
Yeah.
But we've used technology to enable live streaming to occur, so that if you're working from home, you can still attend an all-staff forum. So we're actually now having record numbers of people at those, because you don't physically have to be at work. The other problem at work is you can't abandon the staff or the members to attend all staff forums. So you do it in shifts, and it gets so this alleviates some of that. But it also the technology is a good way to get people on board. We're in a Microsoft environment, so we use Teams, and we have very, very active social pages and company pages, strategy pages, comms pages. So we're constantly sending out messages in a way that's probably a bit more colorful than it used to be. A little bit targeted to different audiences.
Right.
And so that helps. But no matter what age you are, you have to be committed to our values.
Absolutely.
And I think that appeals to young people. They enjoy working in a values-based organization.
Yeah.
We don't normally have trouble recruiting.
Yes.
As Cathy mentioned, the important thing is recruiting somebody
people
with empathy.
Yeah.
Because you can always teach the skills, but you can't always teach people to be empathetic and behave nicely, and not only with members, but also collaborate with team members, their own team.
No, I think you can teach skills, but I think things like empathy is
It's a behavior.
Values, and it's very innate. You're absolutely right.
And just following on from Rob's comment, though, I think that the leaders in the organisation, when we do team meetings or we are discussing with our leaders, we constantly talk about our vision. We're here as a lifetime health partner for union members and their families. And we have worked very hard to ensure that our staff absolutely know their role in contributing to that vision.
Yeah.
So it flows down right into their performance agreement. The values are in their performance agreement. But we can talk to someone who's in the contact centre or at processing a claim or whatever, and they will know their role in contributing to their vision. And we have worked on that dialogue regularly over the last few years, because I'm not sure that we did it very well before, but I think it has improved considerably.
That's another key employee engagement driver, line of sight. So one thing is, I know the strategy, I'm personally committed to making it successful, but do I know what I'm doing? There's this nice thing I want to be a part of and I want to make a difference, but do I have a line of sight in terms of when I do this, I'm contributing? So that is really interesting. So my next question is for you, Rob, because you've kind of answered this before in the past. When I interviewed both of you for my book chapter for the University of Auckland textbook on customer engagement, I asked you to share some stories. And I reckon when it comes to brands that are legendary, it's about stories, right? It's about the stories that circulate and percolate. I'll give you my own example. There's this legendary story about Nordstrom, which is a department store in the US, which is legendary in terms of service. And the story goes that someone came into a Nordstrom department store and they said, I bought these tires for my car, but I don't want them and I want to return them back. And the Nordstrom service person, without blinking, anything, said, show me a receipt, and gave them the money. Okay. The story is Nordstrom has never ever sold car tires. Fact of the matter is there was a business where the Nordstrom store had just set up that used to sell car tires, and Nordstrom had just opened up over there. And the customers probably very, very confused, but there was no questions asked and they just returned it back. The second Nordstrom story is one where in a particular college, they have a Deb ball, right? And it's tradition that you go to the Nordstrom department store, get a really good dress, like a fancy dress, the next day you return it back. Because Nordstrom returns your money, no questions asked. Now, when Nordstrom initially started doing that, people said, ha ha ha, isn't that funny? Ho ho ho. But the college was in a very high, affluent kind of demographic. That experience and the cost of that one dress meant for a lifetime they would always shop at Nordstrom. So I know you guys have some very, very sexy stories as well. Do you want to share them?
Yeah, look, there's no doubt that our staff, particularly in the Health Hub, which is like a health services center that offers dental, optical, physio services. Yeah. They're dealing with patients who may be older, or are, as Cathy said, sometimes in quite either emotional or difficult time of their life when they're ill or when they need treatment for something. Yeah. So we get a vast variety of people that come into our Health Hub. Yeah. On one occasion, we actually closed the Health Hub because they were closing the roads around here because of bad weather in Brisbane. Okay. So we madly called everybody, rescheduled their appointments. And one lady didn't get the memo, and a bit older, she comes in for her appointment. Yeah. And luckily we had phoned her, and she had a mobile phone, and she says, well, I'm almost there. I'm coming in. So we reopened the center for this one lady, just so she could have her, dental treatment. Mm. And as you said, that lady, not only her, but her children, they will never leave TUH again. Exactly. But we do get stories like that. We had one that was, again, an older lady visiting and we're in a center. We're in the middle of Brisbane. Yeah. Parking can be difficult. Yes. We have our own car park, but it's often full. Yes. And she parked her car in one of the surrounding streets. Mm. In fact, it was in a parking lot, but she forgot where she parked it. Yeah. So one of the dental staff actually took the lady and said, right, let's go find your car. Wow. And started walking around the neighborhood until they found the car. Yes. And again, that lady was so grateful. It's not the service you expect. Correct. When you walk into a dental office. Right? Yeah, exactly. So it's that extra mile that we're always encouraging our staff. And when they take it, we put it up on our intranet now. Right. So everybody sees it. And then they start sharing it. And then these stories get shared around. It becomes part of your fabric. Correct. Absolutely. Makes all the difference.
When we do that recognition, we align it back to one of our values. Yeah. So it's constant alignment there as well.
So you know how I said people need to understand their strategy, they need to be personally committed, they need to have line of sight. Another key driver is recognition. So appreciation and recognition. And you touched on that. So how do you recognize people who go above and beyond and truly live your values and so on and so forth?
Well, internally we have a Shine recognition page. Yes. And so it's a peer, often the peers. It's not just the leaders, but your colleagues are putting up stories about and recognising the work that their colleagues are doing, and that gets shared within the business, so everyone gets to see those. Organisationally, we have events for the staff, but the leaders of the teams have their own budget.
Right.
And they recognise their staff in the way that their staff want to be recognised.
Right.
So they tailor the recognition to individuals or to their teams, and the teams are fully engaged in that process. So they don't recognise unless they deserve to be recognised,
right.
but they have the flexibility to be able to recognise how people want to be recognised.
Wow, that is really good. Really, really good. Going on to health insurance as a category, it's becoming increasingly commoditized, right? And that is a challenge. Brokers are, playing a part. And you kind of touched on this already, but what is your value proposition? Like, why should someone select TUH over other alternatives?
I think, and I'm glad you reminded us how long this journey was. It just reminds me how old I am, but I think the journey has changed.
Yes.
So when we first started, it was all about the personal service.
Yes.
So Cathy mentioned we got rid of a lot of the voice recognition things on phones and
Correct.
things, so that you spoke to a person and you addressed them by name, not a number.
Mm.
Over time, I think what we shifted to,
Mm-hmm.
so member service is our value differentiator.
Mm.
We do have lower overhead, so in some categories we have cheaper prices than our competitors, but it's not why people stay with us.
Yes.
They stay with us because of the way they're treated and how they feel. And so increasingly, though, we've moved to a digital environment, like all other companies.
Yes, absolutely.
But we're laser focused on making those improvements that remove a customer pain point,
Like friction.
Customer friction.
Yeah.
So Cathy mentioned paying claims.
Yeah.
We have a large percentage of our claims are straight through processing.
Right.
So we do QA on ones where we have alerts, because we can't neglect, because we're benefiting all of our members if we make sure all the claims are paid correctly.
Correct.
But we're not going to hold up all the claims to check one. So we pay things straight through a lot, and the way you submit a claims now is through your iPhone.
Right.
And it's being used by people of all ages.
Yes.
It's not just for young people. It's pretty ubiquitous now. So that those kind of channels, and we're always introducing new channels.
Yeah.
So in terms of either joining the health fund, we're the first health fund to introduce. You can use live chat, but you can also use live video.
Wow.
So like a
That's
Teams.
pretty cool.
So as far as we know, we're the only ones. So you hop on you call in, you get switched onto a Teams call, and then the consultant can share their screen and say, this is the benefits you'll get. You see here if you what the requirements are and the rest of it.
Correct.
So you get that more personal interaction, and those things have definitely paid off. And using digital also, and this is Cathy's area for sure, using digital just to increase the number of people we can talk to.
Yes.
The number of leads we get. We had to completely shift our mindset after COVID.
Right.
Because our main channel was people visiting schools.
Yes.
Visiting conferences. Well, that all stopped.
Absolutely.
So you can tell them about
that
digital journey.
Yeah, we had to transform the way we did business.
Right.
I think just though, going back to what Rob's saying, we have certainly wanted to increase the choice for people on how they interact with us.
Yeah.
And we wanted to have a 24/7 service proposition for people. So we looked at, say, for example, the higher schools that were coming into the contact centre.
Yeah.
And then we sat down and thought, right, well, how can we apply that to our app and how can we apply that digitally? So then they don't actually have to call the contact centre.
Yes.
They've got that service on the app.
Yeah.
So we have seen a shift in terms of the amount of people having to call us. That's gone down, but the app usage has gone up. So it's starting to work.
Yes.
The transformation in terms of how we did our business, I think COVID, probably a lot of businesses had to sit down and think about how they did business. But where we were lacking was the fact that we really didn't have a digital presence in terms of our lead generation and sales conversion.
Right.
So we have moved from that face-to-face, high interaction, high cost to actually being able to capture data when people come onto our website. We had to look at getting them to our website. Right. So we've got an agency working with us on our search engine optimization, our advertising, capturing that data. Yeah. Now with sophisticated systems that's real life leads, real-time leads that go to a sales team and they're just onto it straight away. And we have absolutely, we've doubled the industry average in this last 12 months.
Wow.
In terms of our sales, and it's because our products are very competitive and we have got something for each life stage in line with our vision, but we have transformed the way that we bring leads into the business and then what we do with them when they're here.
Yeah, that is amazing. You know, it's interesting, there's a view that if it's digital, it's impersonal. But the fact of the matter is that, just because it's digital doesn't have to be impersonal. It depends on what your intent is when you begin. A lot of organizations, unfortunately, go digital purely to save costs. And once you take that mindset, it's a recipe for disaster because the customer experience is going to suffer. But I think with you guys, because your mindset is still to deliver a great customer experience, understand if there are any, friction points or pain points, and fix it, you've kind of got an infrastructure where your customer experience still remains personal. And the second thing I find is with like digital things, as long as people feel that if I get into trouble, I can speak to a human, then they're happy,
Yes,
it's like there's no problem. They have a choice. So that is brilliant. No, that is very, very good, because it's so many times you see big brands and you can tell the motivation is to reduce calls. As opposed to continue to deliver a good experience. So that is a really good.
The other comment Cathy made, we're getting fewer calls in the contact center. We're having to process fewer claims. So we've been vigilant in introducing automation. This is behind the scenes, so it's not customer facing, but behind the scenes, we can process a lot more claims with a lot fewer staff, but we're not letting staff go.
Exactly.
So what we're doing is reassigning staff and realigning them to member experience, so they can add value to the member. As Cathy said, spend longer on the phone, not shorter.
That's
and,
right.
and solve the problem with the customer.
Very, very cool. So I'm asking this next question, but I get a sense you guys have it covered really well. The younger generation, like especially the Gen Zs, their drivers and their motivation is quite different. I think our generation was a little bit more materialistic. We wanted big things, nice houses, all that kind of stuff. With the younger generation, there's more a tendency towards great experiences, purposeful work, meaningful work. They want to feel that they're making a difference. And a lot of leaders are struggling with it because on the one hand, you've got baby boomers managing these Gen Zs and the value set is quite different. Have you noticed that there's a challenge with this new generation and how have you dealt with it or overcome it? Or is it just natural? Is the culture such that a Gen Z would go, yes, this is the kind of place I want to work for?
Well, Cathy has a lot of young people in her team, so I'll let her answer about the staff. But it's also an issue with members.
Yes.
Because we are, it's an aging population.
Correct.
As you get older, healthcare costs more.
Yes.
In the last 3 years of your life, you will use 80% of your lifetime healthcare expenditure.
Yeah.
So we need young members
Yes.
to spread the insurance risk and cost.
Correct.
So a big challenge for us is marketing to younger people who there's all sorts of things they would prefer to use their money on,
Yeah.
but to offer them value
Yeah.
so they can invest in their own health and take up membership. And once they're a member with us, they generally stay. We have very high retention rates.
Right.
Over 90% people
Wow.
just stick with us once they're with us.
Mm.
So that is an issue. So there's the member side, the outward facing side, but then there's the internal,
Yes.
the staff that you work with.
No, absolutely. And I think when it comes to the younger generation, they're digital natives. So going digital is actually important for them, in terms of acquisition, retention, and the whole shooting match. But that doesn't mean they want it to be impersonal, So you've got to have that meld still.
Well, they can teach us. Like one of Cathy's staff members, for instance, did we have a lunch and learn sessions where people just talk about what they're doing or the latest trends. And this young lady did a presentation on digital marketing.
Yes.
And most of the people in the room were baby boomers, but she blew them away.
Yes.
So it's not only engaging the young, it's also engaging the old too. So everybody is on the bus.
In this podcast series, I talked to the head of the International Business School of Media Studies in Bangalore, a very unique school. And he talks about the way he engages with the younger generation. He calls it reverse mentoring. So he does exactly what you were talking about. So rather than, I'm going to tell you what to do and how to do it, it's like, let me learn from you, and that whole relationship just dramatically changes. So the interesting thing about TUH is, when I look back on my career, whether it's in corporations or with clients, there are a few boxes you need to tick to achieve outstanding results, right? And when I talk about outstanding results, it's about customer experience, about growth, increased market share, sales, all that kind of stuff. And in the tick box, what I typically find is you've got to have good insights, right? If you don't have good insights, you're a little bit flying blind, right? You're hoping for the best. The second thing you need is you need to have employees fully engaged, not partially engaged, fully engaged. And the third thing is you need a leadership that can build that foundation and nurtures and supports it. And the great thing about TUH is you tick all those boxes. So that is really, really good stuff. So what would you say to someone, let's just say a CEO comes in, because I can tell you, customer-centric CEOs and employee-centric CEOs are rare, okay? If you look at Gallup as an example, a majority of people are disengaged, okay, at work. When you look at customers, they're disengaged as well. So CEOs and senior executives who get the whole employee engagement, customer-centric thing are very few, okay? So if someone came to you and said, Cathy or Rob, I want to make my organization more customer-centric or member-centric. I want to make it more employee-centric. What advice would you give them?
Well, I'll start and I'll hand over to Cathy. My principal advice would be to be authentic.
Yes.
Because people can tell what you're not.
Yeah.
And so if you're not living to your true self, you cannot be a good leader. Mm-hmm. So as one of my heroes is Socrates. Right?
Yes.
And he said, to know thyself is the beginning of wisdom.
Correct.
So people have to be self-aware. They really have to look at themselves first to see what their values are. Is this something I'm authentically interested in, or only saying it because I read it in the Harvard Business Journal? Right?
Yeah, exactly.
So that's the first thing, is to know thyself.
Yeah.
And then to either join or lead an organization that has a similar value set.
Yes.
Where you can share your values, live your values at work, and so your organizational values are aligned to your personal values. And that's personally why I think I've been at TUH so long, because it's coming up to 20 years, Chris.
Wow.
So it's a lot, some CEOs would have said, you've used your use-by date. But if you're aligned like that, it
Yes.
just doesn't feel like
And it doesn't feel like work, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, it feels like you just come to work to play almost.
Yeah.
Now,
But
that
you've got to
is-
be passionate about customer service too.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
you can't, that's the other half of it. And lifelong learning. It's what we were talking about in this podcast. It changes.
Yeah.
You have to change. You have to be prepared for that change.
So you said your personal hero was Socrates. Who was yours?
Well, actually, I've got someone that's, in terms of the leadership role model for me is someone that's actually a good friend who's closer to home. She's Beth Mole, who was the General Secretary of the Queensland Nurses and Midwives Union. So leading a union is a challenge, but the reason why I admire her the most is she's completely selfless.
Wow.
It's
Wow.
all about the best outcomes for her members. Now,
Right.
she's a very fierce leader, but she leads with compassion and kindness.
Yes.
And, I think sometimes you can get into positions of influence and, ego or whatever. You can get caught up in the influence you have.
Correct.
And you just have to check yourself. And I think probably just one of the things I'd like to say in terms of a very practical application to leadership is you are only as good as the people around you. And I will never forget that the frontline people and those people who are processing those claims every day are the ones that make me look good.
Mm-hmm.
My role is to create an environment to get the best out of them.
Absolutely.
And I just can't believe that leaders forget that it's because of them that the organisation's so good. So you need to talk to them all the time.
Correct.
Get their feedback. I will sit in and listen to hear what they've got to say because they're your best market research.
And they're in the best position, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They are. And you set the tone.
Yeah.
You show them, you lead by example, you're always on as a leader,
Yeah.
but you cannot forget those people who are delivering for you every day.
Yeah.
And I work very hard at that. I like to think we collaborate very well. And I think that's part of the fact that I think that they feel they're listened to then.
Brilliant. Sounds good. I've left the best till last. Now, you guys have won some very prestigious awards. I've talked about the fact that, when we did benchmarking, you guys were way ahead of the pack, like better than the best, I think. But you won some interesting awards. And the interesting thing about them is the fact that they are what I would call voice of the member awards. They're not someone rating your products against other features. It's what your members or customers are saying. So do you want to share with our audience all the awards you won in recent
Of course.
years?
I'll let Cathy.
Probably the main ones were the Roy Morgan Customer Service Satisfaction Award. So a fund our size doesn't always hit the radar for those types of organisations because you need a certain number of surveys. But we did.
Yeah.
And we ended up being the best health fund in Australia. And I'm incredibly proud of that because it wasn't something that you paid to be part of.
Correct.
That's what your members said.
They are what the
saying.
members said. We won another one for the most recommended health fund in Australia as well, a DBN Financial Services one. So I think that that has happened and progressed over time. But there's a national survey that gets done every second year of the whole health industry. And that's public and private, but we have consistently rated in the top 3 funds in Australia for customer service, for value for money products, for customer satisfaction. But the biggest one for me that we are regularly at the top of the tree for is trust.
Yeah, absolutely.
Trust is something that, organisations, I can't believe that organisations have to be taught about trust. Trust is innate.
Yes.
It's in everything you do. And so in terms of that, where are you if your customers or your members don't trust you?
Yeah, exactly. No, that's good. So thank you very much. That was excellent. And even though I worked with you guys, because I haven't been in touch for a while, it was a bit of a learning for me as well. So to our audience, I hope you got great value from this. If you want to build a brand that is truly, customer centric or member centric in your case, that is truly employee centric, that ticks all the boxes, like it's not just, getting your intent right, but having the right insights, getting your employees engaged, taking action, having the support of leadership to drive this kind of change, then, this podcast has all the answers for you. So thank you again, Cathy and Rob. And I look forward to seeing you in the next podcast. Thank you very much.
Thank you.